Have you ever been talking to a VIP, your boss, an investor, a celebrity, your dream job's hiring manager, and you just didn't know what to say, or it got awkward, or you worried, how can I impress this person and be memorable? In this video, I want to specifically talk about how to talk to VIPs. I've done tons of videos on how to talk to strangers, how to bond with friends, how to talk to people on first dates, but I haven't done one specifically on very important people, the VIPs in your life. And I found that VIPs need a specific strategy. Specifically, there are two different kinds of VIPs. There are those who like to be entertainers and those who like to be entertained. Let's go into both of them. So unfortunately, I discovered these two types of VIPs because I kept trying to bond with VIPs and some would go great. We'd become immediate friends, I'd have them on my YouTube channel, I'd go on their podcast, and it went really wonderfully. Whereas other VIPs, it didn't go so well at all. I crashed and burned and wondered, what happened? And I realized that I assumed all VIPs like to be entertainers. What I mean by this is when we think about a VIP, an important person, we think that they like to be the center of attention because in our minds, they're a pretty big deal. And so we treat them as if they want to be the center of attention. We ask them questions, we ask them to tell stories, we put them on a pedestal. Some VIPs love this. They love to be the center of the room. They love to tell funny stories. They love to make people laugh. They love to talk about themselves. Here's the thing, not all VIPs are like that. So for the first kind of VIP, when you ask them a question, they will go on and on. They love telling stories. They love to hear themselves talk. That's the first kind of VIP. And with them, you want to ask as many questions as possible. You want to allow them to really command the center of the room and honor them with that talent. Laugh at their stories. Don't interrupt them. Try to ask more questions that allow them to be impressive and feel like their best selves. VIPs who are entertainers love opportunities to entertain. I remember specifically I met a pretty well-known comedian and I was super excited to meet him. And I made the mistake of thinking, he's an entertainer. He's going to want to keep entertaining. But what I didn't realize is because he entertains all the time in his job, he did not want to entertain when he was in his off time. And so the more questions I asked, the quieter he got. The more stories I wanted him to tell, the quieter he got. And that's because he's always entertaining. In his off time, that's the last thing he wants to do. He was the second type of VIP, which is that he wanted to be entertained. And I realize this because we're in the green room and it's not going well and I'm trying to ask questions and I'm asking all these conversation sparkers and nothing is working. He's shutting down and getting quieter and quieter and quieter. In walks someone else, another guest on the show that night, and they also didn't know each other. And this gentleman sits down and he immediately begins to tell stories. A funny story, an interesting story, a heartwarming story. And all of a sudden, the VIP is laughing, he's engaged, and then he starts asking questions. And it clicked. I thought, he entertains all the time. So when he's in off time, he wants to be entertained. So if you have a VIP who, when you're asking questions, they get quieter and quieter, or they give you really short, vague answers, they might want you to take the spotlight off of them. They want you to tell the funny story, the insightful story, the heartwarming story. So for these VIPs in your back pocket, you want to have those ready to go. This specifically was important with a student that I was working with whose boss was the kind of VIP who liked to be entertained. And my student had this problem where whenever she tried to build rapport with her boss or talk to her boss, he didn't really want to engage. He gave really vague, short answers, very generic answers, and the very first excuse, he'd walk away. She realized that he probably is looking to be engaged. He doesn't want to be the one answering a bunch of questions. He does that all the time. And so she started to save juicy customer service anecdotes. So she was in customer service in the company and he was her manager's manager. And so she started to save these juicy anecdotes and stories from her customer service. And the next time she saw him, she was like, I wanted to tell you, I had this really interesting call the other day from one of our clients. And she said he immediately perked up. He was like, oh, really? What kind of interesting call? And then she began to tell this really interesting story about how the customer, the client, used their product. And he lit up. He was asking questions. He wanted to know more. And then he began to seek her out during lunches and breaks because he knew she might have some sort of interesting story about a customer. The key here was she realized that he's always asked all the hard questions. He's always asked to solve problems. He's always asked to give toasts and speeches. What he doesn't get to do is interface with customers. And so the way that she could entertain him was by giving him the one thing that he didn't get access to a lot. So here's what I want you to think about. When you first meet someone, give them the VIP test. This is just between you and me, where you ask one kind of basic question and you see which way do they go. Do they talk about themselves, tell great stories, and love to hear themselves talk? Or do they give a really vague, generic, short answer? If it's the first, great. Keep asking questions, keep laughing, really honor them as the life of the party. If it's the second, think about how can you entertain them? Is there a piece of information you have, a story you have, a joke they might like, where you can actually give them a break and be the sigh of relief so that they begin to seek you out? What's a piece of intel, information, or humor that you can have for them that will help them remember you because you actually honored where they wanted to be and where they wanted to talk? So those are my 2 tips for talking to VIPs. I have one more bonus tip, and this is looking for nonverbal exit cues. VIPs, very important people, are usually busy. And as much as they like a great story or a great joke, whether they're telling it or they're listening to it, usually eventually they have to go. The best thing you can do for a VIP is honor their time. This is looking for that moment where you think, they looked at their watch, they looked at their phone, they looked overhead. They might be thinking about their next meeting, their next coffee, their bathroom break. Give them the out. Don't make a VIP say, hey, yeah, it was really great talking to you, but I really gotta go. Because that moment of stress will make them remember, ooh, they were fun to talk to, but it was hard to get away. What you want to do is the moment you sense they have somewhere else to be, somewhere else to go, something else they're thinking about, is you say, hey, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I'm going to let you go have a fun night. And one of 2 things will happen. Either they'll say, oh, no, I'm good. I would love to keep talking. Or they'll be like, oh, thanks so much. My parking meter is almost up. I gotta go fill it. When you do this, you build more friends. You build more deeper relationships. And that's because VIPs feel respected. I think VIPs so often get so drained because people just take and take and take. They maximize every second they can with that VIP. If you're the person who honors where they are about being entertained or being an entertainer and says, hey, when you're done, no worries. We can visit another time or we're totally good. That shows them you respect their time enough to not take it from them. So those are my 3, 2, and a bonus tip cues for VIPs. If you have any other tips for VIPs, put them in the comments below. I'd love to hear your tips. And if you liked this video, give it a like, subscribe to our channel. I have a lot more great videos coming down the line.